hours with you. I'd love to. The reason we've got you on the phone and that you're actually going to be here in town, you'll be speaking this weekend at Clements Baptist Church in Clements, Alabama, and that's on Highway 72 in between Rogersville, Alabama and Athens, Alabama. You will be speaking live and in person this Saturday at 5:30 p.m. for a special Fathers and Sons evening, and then the next morning on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. you'll be speaking during that service. So can you tell us a little bit what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, man. Well, again, I wrestled for almost 20 years and was in the industry full time for about 25. But I was raised by a very loving stepfather who was also a professional wrestler, Iron Mike DiBiase, who was also a man who took me to church when I was very young. So I had a very strong faith in God when I was young. And to make a very long story short, to condense this, my faith in God took me through a very difficult time in my life. When my stepfather died, I was 15. My mother turned to alcohol. I had to go back to a very small community, much like the one I'm coming to there in Alabama. Wilcox, Arizona has 3 traffic lights. Interstate 10 goes around it. But I had dreams and visions of college football and NFL and pro wrestling, and didn't know if my dreams could come true. But because I stayed true to the conviction, number one, in that I stayed close to God, I didn't do all the stuff everybody else was doing. I didn't go out and party and do all those things. I took my dad's advice, and what he told me was, he said, anybody can do what everybody else is doing. It takes no courage to do that. What takes courage is to stand up in the midst of the storm and cut your own path in life and be the head, not the tail.
Wow.
And so I was the first kid to ever graduate from this little school, Southern Arizona, with full scholarship to play college football. Went to West Texas State University, played football there. But what happened when I got to college is pride took over in my life. And when pride took over in my life, for the next 20 years, it was all about Ted. And I talked to a lot of men. That's why I'm doing a father-son event Saturday. And I try to impact men with what a real man looks like. It's not, we live in a culture where men evaluate their masculinity by how big their biceps are, how much beer they can drink, how many women they can bed, and what kind of car they drive, and how much money they make. And I tell all those guys, grow up, pal. I said, because the measure of a man is the strength of his character, the size of his integrity. A real man is a man of his word. His word is his bond. He's only as good as his word, and if his word's no good, he's worthless. And for the longest time, I was failing in those areas in terms of, again, I got caught up in the world out there, the whole thing. I mean, pro wrestling became pretty much like the rock and roll scene. It was the next town, the next show, the next party.
Mm-hmm.
Expecting to lose my family because I realized it's what I really deserved. So 2 miracles. One is that my whole life got totally turned around back in the right direction, and by the grace of God and my wife's willingness to forgive me and give me a second chance, I'm still very happily married. And that's a miracle, because if you'd have heard my confession, you'd be in awe of my wife. So, that's, but I never dreamed I'd become Ted DiBiase, ordained minister and evangelist, and that's what I do for 15 years now. That's what I've done. I still have a relationship with the WWE. I just talked this morning with the powers that be at Stamford, Connecticut. They said they'll be sending me my ticket for WrestleMania, my airplane ticket, and I'll be there on Thursday through Sunday. So I have a relationship with them, a very good relationship with them.
As you should.
But my vocation in life is not wrestler.
Right.
I'm defined by, Ted DiBiase, Hall of Fame wrestler. I'm defined, by my relationship with God. And so that's who I am today. And I go everywhere sharing this message of hope and challenging men. I mean, so in a way, I still wrestle. I wrestle with the hearts of men. And I challenge men to be real men. I mean, we live in a culture today, like, how can you tell a politician's lying? Well, his lips are moving. It's like, and it's people keep saying, why does everybody want to elect Donald Trump to be president? I said, well, number one, you can't buy him. He doesn't need the money. And he is saying things that everybody else goes, yeah, that's right. He's right, but nobody else has the guts to say it because as a politician, they're too worried. They speak out of both sides of their mouth because they're just all they're worried about is getting reelected. And so it's kind of like, and so I mean, as crude as Donald Trump might be, he's a real man,
right?
Because he, and again, you can go back to Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura was elected governor of Minnesota. Well, Jesse got elected for the same reason, because the people were tired of status quo. They were tired of a bunch of lying thieves, and they voted a guy who they knew, you might not agree with everything he says, but what he says he really means.
Exactly.
And so again, that's what I challenge Ben to be. And so that's just a little taste of it. And of course, I'll be there as well on Sunday morning, and I'm looking forward to coming. I've got a couple of pastor friends over in Huntsville, not too far away.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'll get to see them while I'm up there at the same time. But I appreciate you guys giving me the time to come on and share a little bit. I know we got kind of couldn't connect yesterday, and this is basically going to air on your website first. And by the time the folks hear it next week, I'll be gone.
But what a testimony! What a testimony, sir, and what an honor it is to have you here. Because, like you were talking about, how life, as far as men, a lot of times life is measured by the size of your biceps and the money you make and the status quo of society. Here's what I find very interesting is because you are one of the greatest in-ring technical wrestlers of all time, but you didn't have the top physique. You were a real man who had, the character that you had. It seemed as if you had it all there, but you still were one of the greatest of all time and still playing the greatest heel, in my opinion, of the 80s for sure, if not of all time, and still being a real man. You get what I'm saying? I respect you so much for what you've done for the business and what you are doing now in your life, and because I'm a born again Christian as well, and for you to say what you have, this is so amazing, and we cannot wait to see you. I don't think we're going to be able to make it on Saturday. I have to play a couple of shows, but I will be there Sunday morning for sure, and I cannot wait to meet you, sir. This has been such an honor and a privilege.
Well, thank you guys so much, and I appreciate the time, and I appreciate your encouraging words. But again, I've called. It's a calling. I've answered a calling. Far be it from me. It's kind of funny now, but after my wife and I went through all of our turmoil and our marriage was healed and we're closer now than we've ever been. She told me one day, she said, Dad, I never told you this, but I did know that one of her best girlfriends growing up was the daughter of a pastor. And she said, I so admired their family that she said, I used to pray that God would allow me to marry a minister. She said, but I never knew that he would take me this way around to get one.
Wow.
Which is,
that's powerful stuff.
But you know what? It's just, you never know. You never know what God's plan is unless you have a relationship with him. That's the other thing is I challenge anybody that's listening. It's like I told an atheist one time in a short conversation. I said, let's just say for the sake of argument, you're right. I said, if you're right, there's no God. We're gonna die one day, and we just cease to have consciousness. I said, if that's the truth, then it really won't matter. But for the same sake of argument, let's say I'm right and you're wrong. You see, if I'm right and you're wrong for eternity.
Right. Exactly.
That's a long time to be wrong. And I'm sorry, but only a fool would go through life blindly believing there's no God, only to die and find out they're wrong. And a lot of people that I speak to that say they don't believe in God have never bothered to search for God. They've never studied. They just blindly believe in evolution. And then, quite frankly, evolution, just so you know, is not a fact either. It's a theory, and it's easier to believe in a God than it is to believe in evolution.
Right. Well, that's where faith comes in. That's the power of faith.
I mean, you talk about faith. Believing in evolution is like parts of a 747 airplane, throw them in a hangar, and then leave for 1 billion years and come back and put itself together.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not accusing evolutions of this or people that aren't Christians, but to me, I think when it comes to evolution, it's kind of a cop out. It's kind of a lazy way to just accept how life is. There's no really mental effort that goes into what your consensus is in life. And that's faith without works is dead. So and that's why faith is such a strong thing for humanity.
Well, that's it. I mean, without faith, it's impossible to please God.
Exactly.
And again, it's not. But that's just it. But it's not a blind faith. It's like, again, when you search for God, you find Him, and that's my challenge. It's like that's what I tell the folks when the guys when I get up in front of them. I said, you'll never see this body in spandex. I have come to wrestle with your hearts.
Right.
And the fruit of what's happened in my life is that, if I had stayed in the wrestling industry, I probably would, I'd probably have a lot more stuff today. I might be living a little more comfortably. I said, you know what? What I've got, you can't put a price tag on. I have the love and respect of a devoted wife. Who is genuinely my best friend, and my children, and I have the privilege of watching my grandchildren grow up. It's funny. I told my wife the other day, I said, you're getting old. I looked at an old wrestling poster of back in that era. I started wrestling in the WWE in 1987, and I wrestled until basically right around the end of '93. And I said, I looked at that poster, and there were only 3 guys on the poster that were still alive.
Wow.
And I'm like, I just turned 62, so I'm not ancient, but when I think about that, and I think about, gosh, what had I not, what if I hadn't made the right decision, back when this crisis took place in 1992, where would I be today?
Well, exactly. You did not have you always lived the larger than life persona, but I think off camera, it seems as if you protected your body pretty well, as opposed to a lot of the other wrestlers that was party 24/7.
That's true. I did my share of partying.
Sure.
But by the grace of God, I was never addicted to alcohol. I was never addicted to any drugs. I certainly had done my share. Again, with the travel schedule, it's like wrestlers did bennies. We call them bennies, or a lot of times diet pills that they take your hunger away, but they also keep you awake. Black cocaine will do the same thing. and I've been there and done that. By the grace of God, again, no addictions, but again, you're still putting everything at risk.
Right.
And the most, the horrible thing for me was just the women and when you look back at that, and I realize how selfish I was, because here I was betraying the trust of my wife, and I was, the security of my children. It was just like you couldn't have been more selfish. And when I faced that, and said, God, I don't ever want to be that person again. I don't ever want to be in this place again. And come into my life, and now, it's because I tell people, I thought I was a Christian for a long time. I said, but the difference between heaven and hell is 18 inches. Because are you a fan or a follower?
Right.
You can only I know all the stats and everything on my favorite football teams and all that, and I'm going to cheer them on. But I'm not out there in the trenches bleeding with them. And that's just it. It's like a fan knows all about it. So you can know all about Christ, but do you know Christ?
Exactly.
Do you have a relationship with Him? Because before you can commit your life to Him, you have to surrender it first.
That's a powerful message. That's amazing. And it's why I respect people so much, because, like I said, I am a born-again Christian as well. And what amazes me as well is it's people like you, Shawn Michaels, Sting, that later in their careers, they have this powerful Christian message, and they're yes, it's not that they're of course Sting came back and was active, and Shawn does spots every once in a while, but it's amazing that you guys will go around the country all the time and speak the true message. Yes, you guys had a character and a persona on TV for decades at a time, but now you're actually preaching a message that's going to change lives eternally. You know, it's not just an entertainment character anymore. Like, this is real life situations.
Well, and then again, what I'm doing is I'm now taking the gifts that God allowed me to have, taking a celebrity that God allowed me to have, and I'm using it to point people to Him.
That's amazing.
That's what all men. That's the basis of my message to men. It's like, it's okay to be ambitious. It's okay to want to go for it, to be number one. There's something that's happened in the church where, for some reason it's been, I don't know, like sissified to some extent. Like, well, it's not really important to live a significant life and get in touch with your, your feminine side or whatever. I don't know, but God made us with a lot of testosterone.
Yes, a lot of it.
God made us to be, warriors. But again, be the best you can be. Take the gifts and talents God's given you, but use them to glory. Be Tim Tebow. Here's a guy who, my gosh, I don't know if any of you guys know that story, but when his parents were missionaries, and when the doctors told Tim's mother that he would never make it, that he'd be deformed, or he'd be special needs child,
right?
And you should abort this baby. Look, they trusted God, and the guys, not only one of them, and again, as much as Tim Tebow would like to be, a starting quarterback in the NFL, the most important thing in his life is to be in God's perfect will.
Exactly. He's not ashamed at all.
Absolutely, and that's what we all need to be. We need to be the hands, the feet, and the eyes, and the heart of Christ on earth, and put the needs of others. It's so I tell people all the time, said God's got a real sense of humor. Of all the people that could have been chosen to be this character, the $1 Million Man, which is the composite opposite of everything God would have you be, I was chosen. So God is like saying, okay, look at Ted play this character who's everything I don't want you to be, and look what I do when I transform his life.
Right.
It's like, it's like the real and the Memorex. It's kind of funny. I signed my autograph pictures. I always have that stuff. I'll have it with me. Pictures and books and stuff.
Please tell me you'll have the $1 Million belt, please.
I have a replica
of
that belt. The real belt's much too expensive for them to let me keep.
I imagine so.
But I sign every autograph, and I put the dollar sign under my name, but I put on there this verse, Matthew 16:26, and I chuckle because people go home and they go, golly, the $1 Million Man, he put a Bible verse on here. What's that say? That verse is where Jesus said, for what does it profit a man if he gave the whole world and lose his soul?
That's powerful.
In exchange for his soul. And so, you know what? I've never seen a hearse pull in a U-Haul trailer.
Exactly.
We're all going to die, and we're all, so if you spend your whole life, Jesus says, store up for yourself treasure in heaven, where neither rust nor moth break it and steal, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And so it's like, I quit storing up treasure on earth, and that's why I go and do what I do. And I want to see people come to the same place of recognition of needing a Savior, and the freedom that comes along with that, and the joy that comes along with that. Again, it's the gospel. The gospel means good news. It's not good news. It's the greatest news you could ever get.
Well, that just goes to show you God's mercy and grace, because we were all born with an amazing sense of we can do. God just allows us to do whatever we want, but it's our decision ultimately. That's when faith comes in, because our prize is not here on earth. So if we can do what we're called to do here on earth, our eternity is exactly what God says it's going to be. And if we do His works here on earth, then eternity will be exactly as He said it was going to be. And so it's amazing, Mr. DiBiase, that you're going to be here and share your message in person, live. And thank you so much for your time. And I know we've probably gone over this over the time limit, and I know you're very busy today, but I'm just sucked in. Again, I could talk to you for hours. Just about specific wrestling things. But this means more to me. This kind of conversation about real life matters, and about how we're going to spend eternity and in our faith. And this means so much, and we really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, I appreciate you guys and your willingness to have me on, and God bless you, man. Just keep up the good work, and although by the time the folks, unless they go on the website, by the time most of the folks hear this, I will have been there and gone. I look forward to seeing you Sunday.
Yes, sir.
Come up and introduce yourself.
I will. Again, this is the $1 Million Man. I can't believe it, but this is here. Ted DiBiase. He will be speaking live and in person this Saturday at 5:30 p.m. doing a Fathers and Sons event at Clements Baptist Church in Clements, Alabama, and then on Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Thank you so much for being here, and for more information, you can call Clements Baptist Church on Highway 72 in Clements. For more information, call 256-729-1328. Again, that's 256-729-1328. And before we leave, can I just get everyone's got a price and with a laugh? Can I please?
Well, again, before I leave, if folks want to keep track of the, I have two websites, $milliondollarman.com, and the ministry site is heartofdavidministry.com, and I'm also on Twitter, MDM Ted DiBiase, and so those are the places where you can keep track of what I'm doing. And of course, for all the wrestling fans, I couldn't possibly leave without reminding all of you this just one last time. Never forget this, because it's so very important. Everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man.
Money, 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 money. Thank you so much, Ted DiBiase. We'll see you on Sunday and possibly, hopefully, Saturday. But again, you can go to $milliondollarman.com, heartofdavidministry.com, and be sure to follow the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, on Twitter. Have a great day, Ted. We'll see you Sunday. Thank you so much, sir. Bye-bye. That was cool.
Yeah.
That was freaking awesome. How long did that last?